What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are back with another episode of Lions Latest, where we go through the latest Detroit Lions news. And today, we have a roster move to discuss. The Detroit Lions have been awarded a player through the waiver wire. At the same time, they've also released a player off of their roster. So let's get it started.
Fired up. It's made a great decision.
Great teammates, coaches, and other people who want to be Super Bowl champions. And we're going to do it this year.
And we're going places because we want to go places.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
Welcome, everybody, to another video. Glad you guys are here. We're back with another Lions latest video. I'm going to try my best not to say exactly what I just said now that we've come back from the intro. You guys know what we're doing in today's video. We're taking a look at a player that has been added to the Lions roster. And I don't want to just overlook this because you never really know what this could turn into. We hear nothing about this player after this very moment. Or this could turn into a player that's impactful during the season. We're looking back and we're like, hold up, we should have paid attention to when we signed this guy because this is actually a pretty darn big deal. It's like the addition of maybe like a Craig Reynolds last season. Didn't happen the same way, but Craig Reynolds kind of under the radar, then bam, you get to see him in the preseason. He starts balling out, regular season making plays. So you don't want to overlook these additions, especially when they claim players through waivers, because you have to put the claim out for that player. They have to go through the waiver wire. And the Detroit Lions hold pretty high priority because they were the number 2 pick in this year's draft. So they're second on that list, meaning that the Jacksonville Jaguars basically passed on this player through the waiver wire, but the Detroit Lions did not. So let's dive into that. We're going to talk about this player a little bit in today's video. We'll probably touch on this player once again as we get to our defensive line and defensive front kind of breakdown heading into the season, our preview of each positional group. I'm working on those right now. I'm starting off with secondary. It's taking a hot minute, but the best things take a hot minute. But anyways, that's off topic. Let's start with the Lions roster move that they made to clear the space. Releasing kicker Aldrick Rosas from the 90-man roster. Aldrick Rosas is a former Pro Bowl kicker back in 2018 with the New York Giants. He was brought in last season with the Detroit Lions, kind of dealing with a kicking carousel. You could say he was 1 for 1 for the Lions on the season from 44 yards out, but the Lions, as of before this move was made, were the only team in the NFL to actually have 3 kickers still on their roster at this point. Last season, it was kind of a mess. Austin Seibert had the injury that he dealt with, and the addition to bring back Aldrick Rosas on a futures contract in February may have had something to do with the injury that Austin Seibert was dealing with. But now that he has been released off the team, the Detroit Lions are down to 2 kickers, and that is Riley Patterson and Austin Seibert. So we'll see who wins that battle. The hope is that the Lions come into the season with a kicker. I'll just say that because then that means they're confident in one of those 2 guys, and they feel good about that kicker position. Last year, that wasn't the case. We came in with no kickers, and it was just kind of a mess, and it definitely cost us some games last season. It definitely did. However, the Detroit Lions have, as of now, released Aldrick Rosas off the roster. So good luck, Aldrick Rosas, going forward. Hopefully, you'll find a landing spot. As for the addition that the Detroit Lions have made, it's another defensive line, another front line addition for the Lions. This is John Cominsky, a defensive lineman from the Atlanta Falcons, a former 4th-round pick back in the 2019 NFL Draft by the Atlanta Falcons. Now, before we get into this player a little bit, there is a slight kind of connection here. Currently, the LA Rams defensive coordinator is Raheem Morris, and when John Cominsky was a defensive lineman with Atlanta, specifically when he actually played defensively, Raheem Morris was there. We know at one point he became their interim head coach, and then now he is with the LA Rams. Now, him joining the LA Rams in 2021, Brad Holmes, of course, wasn't there, but they did bring him into LA. So there's, I guess, in a way, sort of a connection from a schematic standpoint, because he did play with Raheem Morris when he was coaching there with Atlanta. The season he left, his snaps pretty much all but went completely away defensively. So it's a little thing I wanted to throw in there. But this is a 4th-round pick number 135 back in the 2019 draft by the Atlanta Falcons, a Division II player coming out of Charleston who had 2 great seasons to end his college football career. As a junior, he put up 23 tackles for loss and 6.5 sacks. And then as his final year, 16.5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. It led to him getting a combine invite. It also led to him winning his conference's Defensive Player of the Year award. At the combine, man, he put up some really, really impressive scores. He listed in at 6'5", just over 6'5", 286 pounds, while also posting a 4.69 40. Now, this is a former quarterback, going way back, former option quarterback that ran a 4.69 at 286 pounds, okay? That's insane. That's absolutely incredible. He also posted a 1.67 10-yard split out of that time, which is pretty darn good as well. 22 bench press reps. You can see it 33.5-inch vertical. The 3-cone drill was fantastic, just over 7 seconds, okay? So fantastic there in terms of agility. Fortunately, this past year, he didn't really play with Atlanta. He only played 13 defensive snaps. Dean Pease came in as their defensive coordinator with the new regime and Arthur Smith taking over as the head coach. But before this past season, he played a lot of defensive snaps. He played almost 400 snaps in 2020. He was a rotational early down defender that brought some interior pass rush on obvious passing downs. But like a guy like Josh Paschal, we took a look at out of Kentucky, the versatility is definitely there. And I don't want to just say that. You know, you want to have certain spots where it's like, okay, where is he best? But he was legitimately very versatile along the defensive line for Atlanta. He seriously played everywhere, and that's not just on pass downs. On early downs, they would line him up and shade him against the center, all the way to kicking him outside of an offensive tackle. So there was tons of versatility along the defensive line for John Cominsky. But as we said, this past year really didn't play. They had some changes happening in terms of scheme, in terms of new coaching staff, and he was released this past week by the Atlanta Falcons. But what's good about this for the Lions is that in claiming John Cominsky, he still is on his rookie contract. He's on the final year of his rookie contract, which means that if he hypothetically played well this year, he served an impact for the Lions defense, he could potentially be re-signed. It's kind of an opportunity to prove yourself. Sort of in a way like a Charles Harris maybe, right? Because Charles Harris also came from Atlanta, so they actually played together. Charles Harris gets an opportunity with us, plays well, and he earns a 2-year pretty nice contract extension back with the Detroit Lions. So this is an opportunity, same thing kind of going on here for John Cominsky, whether that's with us or someone else, to hopefully kind of get his career back on track to where he wanted it to go. Now, I want to get to the player comparisons and things like that a little bit more at the end. However, just in terms of the build, he's kind of similar in terms of combine scores, in terms of build, to a guy like Cam Jordan, who, of course, is the defensive end, the strong side defensive end for the New Orleans Saints. Actually, in a lot of ways, they have a very similar build, and also they put up a lot of very similar scores at the combine. There's not really much at all to take a look at from the 2021 season for John Cominsky. For the most part, he played in 4 games, but he only played 13 defensive snaps. Even though he does bring some special teams ability, for the most part, this past season, he was a healthy scratch on this roster. But in 2020, as we said, he played almost 400 defensive snaps. Pro Football Focus gave him a 67.4 overall grade, a 62.8 against the run, and a 66.5 as a pass rusher. Statistically speaking, according to Pro Football Reference, he was accounted for 28 total tackles, 1 sack, 10 pressures. Pretty impressive, 10 pressures. That's one number that popped out to me. 3 tackles for loss, and like we said, 398 defensive snaps. You throw in the film, there's one thing that does stand out pretty early when you watch him, and that's his pursuit to the football. From Dan Quinn on John Cominsky when he was with the Atlanta Falcons was that he's a grinder, the work ethic, the I'm going to go again and again and again. That's kind of the mentality that he brought to the practice field. And one thing that he was known for coming out of college was some of that pursuit, relentlessness to the football, some of that hard work that he put in, whether that's as a pass rusher or a run defender, is definitely noticeable. And of course, that 40 time, the closing speed that he has is pretty outstanding. So when you get him out in space and he's trying to track something down at just under 290 pounds, it stands out big time. Now, he may have lost a little bit of weight with Atlanta. I've seen people list him at about 275. So he may have lost some weight since coming out of the draft. I don't know. Maybe the Lions will give us some clarification there on maybe what the vision is for this player. Of course, we don't even know if he's going to make the team, but the speed is legit when it's talk about working in space. Very massive frame that through college he put on 70 pounds. He put on 70 pounds through his college career at Charleston. He probably could add more to that if you need him to, probably could lose weight because we've already seen his weight fluctuate. So you could probably move it around depending on the role that you're trying to play him in. And with the lower body, he did look a little bit more linear. So I don't know how much mass he could add in the lower body. He may be a little bit limited there, but he has shown the ability to put on weight throughout his college football career. I sound like a broken record because it's kind of like all defensive line we've talked about to this point. One thing that they have as a strength is that get off, that explosiveness, the acceleration off the line of of scrimmage, and that's no exception here with John Cominsky as well. And what I really like is the way that he gets off the line, because at his height, we talk about a lot of players that are undersized, 6'3", 6'2", 6'1", playing the defensive line position. That's not the case here for John. He really has to work to get underneath your pads off the line of scrimmage, and you can really see him fight to get underneath an offensive lineman, specifically with the initial contact. So that is one thing that I do like, and he combines that with some of that explosiveness, some of that jump off the line of scrimmage, which also slides over to pass rushing as well. One thing, though, that stands out to me as a run defender is his active work to make sure that he repositions his hands to be able to get free, to be able to stack and shed, and make plays against the run. As we said, he moved all over the place in this defense, and it wasn't just pass downs. Run downs is the same thing. They moved him all over the place. But one thing that was pretty constant as a run defender, because they did ask him a lot of times to stack and shed, stack, hold his lane, then shed off the block and make a tackle against the run. They also asked him sometimes to shoot and jump gaps. One thing that was pretty consistent, though, was his fight to position his hands or reposition if his hands don't get set how he wants them to initially on the play. As we said, I like his work to fight to get underneath pads, and he usually has pretty good, consistent hand placement. His hands don't get very wide. He keeps them inside, and he gets on the chest of offensive linemen, and that allows him to shed blocks. If that doesn't initially work and his hands don't get placed correctly, you see the fight to reposition his hands. This one against the Saints was super impressive, to get his hands back inside. That way he can shed off the block and make a play against the run. He's got good, not elite arm length, but he's got good arm length, which can position him well for versatility. If you have extremely short arms, it can be tough to kick further and further outside, but it's enough at over 33 inches. Usually when he's asked to penetrate gaps, or if he's playing off the backside and the run is away from him, is the way that his feet don't stop. I think this is also very crucial. I think he may lack some mass, specifically in the lower body, which can leave him a little bit vulnerable to double team blocks. And one thing that shows up as a pass rusher a little bit as well, but specifically, is that while he can initially win that battle, get low off the line, get his hands underneath your pads and fight to reposition, is that his pad level can work up as the play goes on. Because of his height, I think, as well, is because the fact that the guy is 6'5", is that he can kind of pop up a little bit as the rep goes on. But he wins the initial battle, and here he is as a backside run defender. Because he wins that battle, he can get his head up and make a play against the run and see it coming. And if his hand placement gets high, or he gets on top and loses that leverage, he's really going to be shoved out of play. Here's a good rep handling the double team and now allowing the center to get to the second level to open up a lane for the running back here. Now, the first important step is the engagement with this right guard on this play, and then feeling the double team block. So look how he engages, okay? We talked about the ability to get off the line low, hands, and he's able to really push a lot of that power into the right guard back. Then as soon as he feels that guard, watch him sink his right knee and reposition his left foot to hold his ground and not allow the center to get to the next level. But it's about winning the initial battle here with the strike in the inside of the right guard, which holds the center because he's not able to get to the second level because he needs to keep that lane clear for the running back. What's exciting is his potential as a play side run defender and how stout he can be at the point of attack. Watch how his play slide leg does not get driven back here, and he wins initially off the line of scrimmage, halts the movement in his one-on-one block, and then he's able to disengage with the push-pull and make a play on the ball towards him against the guard. Now, the schematic side is definitely going to be interesting. You see the Falcons ran a 4-3 over front this season, having a 3-tech on the strong side and pushing him inside to that strong side. However, it looks like the Lions will be going to run a 4-3 under front, which is walking down that Sam linebacker, having your 3-tech play the weak side like a Levi, and that could mean that he could kick out to playing a strong side defensive end role where a main strength is stopping the run. That way your weak side defensive end is all about rushing the quarterback, which would probably be a fit for Romeo Okwara. Definitely think it's probably going to suit him better to consistently be more of a one-gapping style defensive lineman. As the Lions said, that's what they want to be, but at the same time, they're not going to blindly just shoot gaps and close their eyes and run through them and not see what's happening. Here's maybe an early idea of what I think this could look like for the Lions. Obviously, I didn't put much of the depth here, but just a couple of names and where they could plug in. This kind of straightforward one gap, it does have two gapping potential, but it is a pretty straightforward defense that allow you to play fast, be flexible, and get after and pressure the quarterback. I could see him playing that 5-tech role, maybe the 3. Utility is key here, though, as there's so many pieces that can move. I mean, Pascal could move around, Cominsky could move around, Charles could play the weak side defensive end. Hutchinson could probably line up as a Sam if you want him to. Almost like a Josh Pascal, who showed the ability to do both. Like we said, Cominsky could either jump a gap or stack and shed. Same thing that Josh Paschal was able to do at Kentucky, because they would put both of those responsibilities on his plate. He's a pretty tough run defender to move, specifically in pursuit off the backside, let's say of a zone run. He's really tough to move, and he really closes space working the backside of a defensive line, really working along the defensive line on the backside of a run. He's very tough to move and try to push into the second level. Keeps his feet moving, and the aggressive demeanor that he plays with, he's very tough to move along the line of scrimmage. Now, he does lack a little bit, I think, in some of the closing ability off of the backside as a run defender. He plays kind of tall, doesn't show much flexibility, flexion in the lower body to kind of squeeze through small angles to make plays on the run. Pass rush, I think, again, we talked about Josh Paschal, and it was my favorite part of his game. Probably, I don't know, I liked a lot of things of his game. Definitely go check out that video. But one thing Paschal I thought brought was a different element to this team is an interior pass rush. On obvious passing downs, I put Josh out there and I said, hey, go rush the quarterback, but do it against the center. Do it against the guard. Yeah, can you rush an offensive tackle? We've seen you do it, yes, but win on the interior, because last year we didn't really have that. There was too many times where Nick Williams was out there on pass downs, where Michael Brockers, who is historically not a great pass rusher, is out there on obvious pass downs. We didn't have that guy that always created that push, that interior push, the interior presence. We had guys that could win the edge, but how many guys could threaten centers and guards and really collapse the pocket? That's something we didn't really seem to have last year. And I think Paschal adds to that and gives you an element of this defense that you didn't have last season. With that being said, to me, with a John Cominsky, I think that's where he is most successful as a pass rusher, is what he does from the interior, not really what he does against offensive tackles. I mean, he's done it, but he's much more effective against the interior because of the skill set that he brings. Again, we talk about the explosiveness off the snap, the jump off the line of scrimmage, and I like it. He gets into almost like a sprinter stance extremely quickly, and this is coming from his hands in dirt. He's done a couple stand-up rolls defensively. We've even seen that on early downs against the run when he kind of lines up across from a gap that he's going to shoot between the tackle and the guard. But a lot of times hand in the dirt, but just the explosiveness off the line of scrimmage, the jump off the line that immediately turns into almost like a sprinting stance, which puts a lot of pressure on centers and guards trying to back and set their anchor, which is not only impactful for him and really pushing and shoving the pocket back into the quarterback, but specifically for opening up other pass rushers, whether that's a delayed blitz from an inside linebacker because he pulls the attention of both a center and a guard, or a potential outside-inside stunt or some sort of other stunt that he's able to create and open up because of that jump off the line of scrimmage. It's something that Paschal I thought was extremely good at. Not only could he open for himself, but he could open for others. And that's what I see here as well with John Cominsky, is a very similar ability to do the same thing. A pure athleticism off the line of scrimmage, but also the way that he approaches offensive linemen. Getting low and being explosive is how I would describe it. Here he is slanting inside, trying to set up a stunt. Now the quarterback rolls out, because he puts this kind of pressure and forces quarterbacks to flush. An underrated part of his game as well is the length. He's long, he's tall. He has a couple pass breakups in 2019. There is very legitimate potential where if he just gets by the pocket, the reach and also potential knock passes away. Here he is off the backside as the run defender. Watch him keep his head up, break down under control. Then when he realizes it's a pass, you can see the plan. He already has the first guy beat with his hand placement, and then he's just a pinball to the quarterback with the effort. He doesn't have many sacks whatsoever. He hasn't finished as much as you would like to see. Most of the time, a very vast majority of the time, he won with the bull rush. That's how he won as a pass rusher. I thought he used his hands better because of his fight to reposition as a run defender than he does as a pass rusher. There's very small instances where he uses his hands as a pass rusher to get himself free, aside from turning speed into power and either using a long arm, complete bull rush at an offensive lineman. There wasn't a lot outside of that. He's not really a technician as a pass rusher with his hands. In this scenario, he always looked like he could be a little bit limited coming out of college as well, and there would probably need to be some more development here for him to be a very dominant pass rusher. But again, I think the Lions need a guy that can keep pushing that pressure on the interior, and he does bring that because of his bull rush, and the majority of the time, that's how he wins. And if anything, even if he doesn't win, he's usually drawing attention of a center and guard because of his ability to slant rush, open up other pass rushers, and occupy a center and guard, which if you occupy a center and guard, you don't have any extra pass protection in. If your outside rusher can be one-on-one with an offensive tackle, right? That means that defensive end, whoever is aligning outside, is one-on-one with the tackle, and it can also open up some of the possible pass rush counter back inside if you're able to really draw the attention of an offensive guard on the same side as that pass rushing defensive end, and now it opens up a very pure one-on-one for that guy, maybe an Aiden Hutchinson or whoever it may be, because we know the Lions have been doing some work with Hutchinson on the interior, working against guards. whatever it may be, opens up those guys on the outside to be impactful. One thing, and it kind of shows up with his combine score, is some of that agility and its explosive agility. He's definitely not the most fluid mover, even coming around on stunts. He's not the most fluid mover. It didn't seem, in the change of direction multiple times may not be his biggest strength. I thought Pascal was better here, and again, I think it's because he's a little bit linear, but he wins initially. However, after that, again, the rep gets a little bit high on him and you don't see as much success. I mean, I guess in a way like a Logan Hall, right? Now, different skill set, but in a way. But what you do see is explosive agility, specifically just sidesteps, right? Burst off the line, set an offensive lineman, and then sidestep back through. There was actually one against Chicago where he utilized the sidestep, turned it into an immediate rip through as a pass rush, and got after the quarterback. You don't see him utilize his hands a ton and win that way very often, aside from a bull rush, but that was a nice little glimpse of, okay, there's something there.
He's an excellent clear-out rusher. On this play, he's going to chop down the center's left hand, and he does a great job of splitting the gap and forcing the attention of both offensive linemen here to allow a free rusher in the interior.
He rarely ever seemed to go to any sort of swim move, which is probably something that could continue to be added to his game more often, depending on pass rush opportunities that you give him. It's because right now it's pretty limited in terms of what he showed, at least in 2020, as a pass rusher.
But he still seems raw with upside. He's got pretty powerful hands and just a lot of juice and explosiveness with relentless effort. He just doesn't have a lot of ways to win. Right now, he's best suited as a stunt guy that opens everybody else up and sometimes bowls you back to the quarterback. The fact that he's had success with that to this level in the NFL is pretty impressive, considering there's not a ton that stems from it.
When he's on the outside, his main win, speed to power bull rush. I mean, that's how he won on the outside. It really wasn't any other way I thought that he won on the outside. There wasn't much there. I mean, unless he was slanting or stunning and he just went one-on-one with the tackle, it was speed to power, try to get a tackle to overset, and then punch him in the chest and try to push him back into the pocket. The issue with that is that specifically on the outside, he seemed very limited because as soon as an offensive lineman had the opportunity to set their anchor, if they could get underneath his pads, and again, he does good with, I think probably improving from college, is sticking low into the initial contact. Because if you get up high at 6'5" and you're going into a bull rush and you haven't really demonstrated some of that swing move over top, which would probably be a counter that he could add, like a Logan Hall, because I thought that's where he was really good. But if you're going to do that, if you're showing speed to power and an offensive tackle has a chance to set and get an anchor underneath your pads and hit you and punch you in the chest because you're above him, your pass rush is dead. There's nothing after that. And he hasn't shown a counter off of that to make anything happen. The pass rush just stops. It halts. So even now, even when he wins the initial punch and he bounces the lineman back a few steps, they can eventually get under, set an anchor, and the pass rush usually halts there, aside from the fact that he's nasty, right? It's not very clean. It's not very smooth. There wasn't much of a stringing, okay, the bull rush into this, which again, that's probably where he could build upon what he is now, and more refs will probably help him do that. Good defensive line coach will probably help him add something to that he can string off and play off of it, because right now he just wins with that power. That's how he wins as a pass rusher. He's going to put his head down and he's going to try to pile drive you back into the pocket. That's how he wins. There's not much strung off of that. It doesn't go very beyond that as a pass rusher.
Plays like this just feel like potential is left on the table. Where he can get to the left guard, he goes to like an arm chop on the outside arm of the left guard, but he splits half the man. He doesn't really show the dip to rip and dip and finish this play, but maybe this is a perfect spot for that swim move to get him to shoot his hands and work over top and get to the quarterback that way. Because right now he's more just straightforward as a pass rusher.
Definitely is a nasty player that plays with very good aggression and pursuit. Like we said, as a run defender, he's going to keep tracking that football. And even if a quarterback takes off, you see the speed to just run down guys. And I think part of that's that he's not always on the field, so he's probably very well rested. But at the same time, I can't fault him for it either, because the energy that he played with as a pass rusher, the nonstop motor and pursuit to the football, I thought there was really no sign of any sort of dip or bend or very much flexibility at all in the lower body. Aside from the upper body flexibility to get in your chest and win the initial punch, there isn't really much that was noted here. He's kind of linear, which makes it a little tough when trying to shoot through gaps. He definitely lacks seemingly that flexibility as a pass rusher. Basically shows no sort of dip or bend, specifically if he gets half of an offensive lineman. He's got to do better, I think, of adding more of the rip through and finding ways with his hands to continue to pass rush, because right now, even if he gets half an offensive lineman, it can be halted because, again, there's not much off of it. So as long as an offensive lineman can recover in front, there isn't a pass rush move to finish the deal. And right now, he only has that one sack to go with the pressures that he had in 2020. I don't even know if 10 is accurate, to be honest with you. He got in the backfield a lot. He just didn't finish. A little bit out of control when he got back there. Just didn't seem to be some of that flexibility, some of that smooth fluidity to finish off some of those pass rush reps. Instead, he's more like a pinball in terms of rushing the quarterback, and kind of like a Josh Pascal, more of a bowling ball rushing the quarterback than anything anything from the interior was just that kind of look. I'm running you over. And if you're going to be in the way, you're going to take the punishment on the way there. What's his role with the Lions? Well, of course, we'll have to see if he ends up making the team because that's going to be the first step. But let's say hypothetically he does make the team. I view this as a strong side defensive end, like I said, with flexibility along the defensive line. On pass rush downs, I like his rush from the interior. Let him work there, which gives him a depth option to a Josh Paschal, gives you some flexibility there. Majority of the time, it's going to be an interior pass rusher that can align anywhere, from head up over the center, wherever you want to put him as an interior rusher on obvious pass downs. With that being said, on early rundowns, I view him as a strong side defensive end that potentially could work on the 5, which is outside of an offensive tackle, an outside shoulder of an offensive tackle. Maybe even better at about a 4-eye technique, be an inside shoulder of an offensive tackle. Anywhere from basically like a 3 to a 5 tech is probably where you feel most comfortable, at least by the way that he was built. The ability to stack and shed at his spot when the run is ran towards him on the strong side of the field. You can walk up a Sam linebacker to his side of the field for your run defender. Now, I think the Lions will ask more one gapping responsibilities of him than he was with Atlanta. There was a lot of stack and shed reps in there. I think they'll ask a little bit more getting downhill. There were occasions where they would line him up and shade him against the center. Don't think it's going to be often here. Now, you may do that on an obvious pass down, and all of a sudden here comes a draw, and it's like, okay, he's out there. So that's potential. But I view him as kind of like a strong side defensive end, possibly 4-3 DT / strong side defensive end role. I think that's where I would put him in, which would be behind a guy like Josh Paschal as a pass rusher. I like him against offensive tackles, offensive guards, maybe shade a little bit inside of an offensive tackle. Right now, especially at like a 285 build, I think that strong side defensive end, just like a Cam Jordan.
Cam Jordan's kind of an anomaly, but if they feel like he could win against offensive tackles, he could compete for a role like this where Cam moved all over the place from a 3-4 to a 4-3, but in 2020, they pushed him out as a weak side defensive end in their 4-3 underfronts.
We'll see if he's able to make the team, but the Detroit Lions have added more defensive line help, and it's not a bad thing. I was thinking about this even when I did the Paschal video. I'm like, okay, Paschal, good interior pass rusher, right? But aside from him, and Aiden Hutchinson, of course, you can always ask those speed rushers and things like that to bump inside. But aside from guys like that, which one is a pure I win on the interior, that's how I win as a pass rusher? Which one of our guys on the roster is that? I'm not really sure. I really still don't know. Is that Levi? Like, is that him? Maybe. But who's behind Paschal? Well, now it looks like the Lions may have a guy. And defensive line depth, it's very open to me. It's very open in terms of competition between the Bruce Hectors. This guy will probably directly come in and compete with the Jayshon Cornell. Demetrius Taylor, who's a little bit more, stocky, a little more bulky, a little bit shorter, a little bit less length. That play like a defensive end, like an edge in college, but he'll probably kick a little bit further inside. I think that's his competition right now when you're talking about can he make the roster. It's the Demetrius Taylors. It's possibly the Bruce Hectors. It's the guys like Jayshon Cornell that he's fighting with to find a way onto this roster. And we'll see if he can do it, but I definitely don't want to overlook it. It's a former 4th-round pick that the Lions and Brad Holmes may have had his eye on coming out. Let me know your thoughts, comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'm out.